And today it's going to be a little bit different than usual in that I'm going to be going over how I make a cover page for my designs before I export them into PDF. And this is something that is obviously very flexible. You can use a lot of different programs to make a cover page. And I just wanted to show a few examples. So this is one of mine that I've made. All of my cover pages have this same format, and I've just saved it as, I think, cover page mockup in my files. And I've got my logo here. I've always got the title of my design. I've got Little Stab Studios, which is how I publish my designs under. And I usually include a small picture example of the design. I list how many stitches it is and how large the finished product will be in the fabric I recommend. And then I will list some information about the pattern. And then finally, I also include information about how to credit me if you finish a pattern and how to reach me, on Instagram or something. So also people, in addition to sharing it, they could also contact me if they have any questions. So I wanted to show a few covers from other designers. I'm not going to be showing the patterns at all, only the cover pages. So I wanted to let you guys know that about copyright. I have purchased all of these patterns. So this is the Mushroom Family Sampler, and this is from one of my favorite Japanese designers. This is by Kyoko Marioka, and she designs as Gera. And her designs are super cute. As you can see, she has a nice large clear picture of the finished design, and then she has some information about herself in both Japanese and in English, and then she has a small little blurb about the sampler and gives us different names for all of the characters, which I like. So this is also a very nice and clear cover page, and the only little fancy addition is this little banner at the top. And I believe all of her patterns have this color scheme here, so you can kind of tie them all together. And then another one I really love is the Witchy Stitcher. She's got some really gorgeous gothic patterns. And this banner is included at the top. She's got her website there. And the little slogan, Fiber Arts for the Strange and Unusual. And again, a nice large photo of the design. I do believe that this is a mock-up because it is so clear. I have seen finished. I think it has to be because, yeah, those are really, really even stitches otherwise. So this is a mock-up, and I understand that for reasons of the photograph. It's a lot clearer. I know that I've seen this design completed though, so that was just a choice to make sure that this was clear for people to see. And then we've got just the name of the pattern and cross-stitch pattern there. So it's very fancy looking. Again, we just got the banner up at the top here and then an image, and then they detail down below more about the differences you can make to the size and things like that. And then finally, I wanted to look at a more classic example. This is from Long Dog Samplers. I do have this, and I think I've got maybe 1% of my pandemic done. I really want to get started back on that again. But it's very simple. We've got Long Dog Samplers. We've got a nice, big, clear, again, this is a digital rendering. I have seen hundreds of pandemic stitched by this point, but again, a digital rendering is clearer and it's less distracting if you're trying to look up the example. So I do like that for an example photo, but you can use an actual photo as we saw in the Mushroom Family Sampler as well. And then they list the title of the design, how many stitches it is, the website, and the copyright information, along with a small little logo. So this is a nice, simple cover sheet. So I just wanted to go over a few examples. It's always nice to see what other designers are doing when you're thinking about what you would like to do yourself for your cover page. So Here is one. I'm going to be working with this design just because it's one I made, and obviously I want to be respecting copyright, but I'm going to be pretending that I am a new studio. I'm going to be working with a new logo and a different color scheme. You can see in this example, this is open in Pages, and that's how I work to make my cover sheets. It's really simple. I'm not using Photoshop or anything fancy for that. So you can definitely make a really nice design without any fancy expensive programs. And I'm going to show how we do that right now. So first I'm going to go ahead and click New. And I'm just going to start with a blank document. So I'll hit Create, and it's going to load up, not template, hopefully, there we go. And what we want to have on the cover page, obviously we want to have a logo if we have one made. I went ahead and made one, actually. I personally made mine on Hatchful, which is from Shopify. But after looking around a bit more, I actually think if I did this again, I would go with freelogodesign.org because I liked the selection that they had a bit better. Hatchful's good. And the biggest thing I would recommend when you're making a logo is to go with one that has a transparent or see-through background, because that way you can use it as a watermark. You can use it all over your social media. It's very easy to change the colors. And that is the only reason I would not recommend Canva for this particular design, because if you want to do a transparent background in Canva, then you have to purchase their premium. Whereas with Free Logo Design, you edit this in their editor. It takes a few minutes. You pick out the fonts you like, things like that. And then this low-res version, which is free, is going to be perfect for most cross-stitch designers. It does say it's only 200 pixels, but it's in a PNG format, and I found it to be quite easy to change the size without compromising quality too much. You don't need to worry about the high-res version. This is going to be fine to fit an Etsy shop, and it's going to work good in creating the cover pages, etc. So I have a logo made. I want to get something going. I want to have a little border going on. And the way I do that is I come up here to the top where it says Shapes. And you can look through all of these. There's actually some really cool borders that they have stored in here. If, for example, you have an umbrella theme going, you could always put one of those in the back. A lot of interesting borders and frames, things like that. But to keep it simple this time, I'm just going to go ahead and pick a standard square. And they always start you off with black. And if you decided that you wanted to go with a black square, that's fine. And I just want to show you real quick. That's actually what I've got here. If I go to front, it's going to pop up above everything. So this is really just one giant pink square, and then there's a white square on top of it. And that's how you make a border. So I'm going to go ahead, and I like to zoom out so that I can see everything on one page. It makes it easier for me to make sure that I get everything. And let's say that I want to have, let's see, I think I put kind of a dark blue color for the logo. So I want to kind of match that, and I'll come over here. You have to click this arrow to expand the fill options. Maybe a nice dark navy. Looks pretty nice. It's different from what I have, and it kind of makes me think of a nice classic design. And then those lines that are popping up, those are going to be showing us if things are centered. I forgot. We have to be careful about expanding down. And actually what I should do is get rid of those. I'll show you. And when you have a normal Word document, you're writing a letter, usually you have a header and you have a footer to put notes and annotations, maybe the date, things like that. For a cover page, we don't want to have that most of the time because we want to have more flexibility and where we can put our shapes. So we're going to get rid of the header, we're going to get rid of the footer, and then we're going to decrease the margins as well. If I remember, the bottom one is particularly finicky. Okay, so now we've decreased the margins to 1/2 inch on each side, and then we left 1/4 inch on the bottom, because the bottom is always special for me. So now the document is going to allow us to have this shape take up more space. So I'm going to go back to Format, and I'm going to click back on the square, and now I'm going to drag it along a bit more, and I actually don't want it to go all the way over to the edge. So I think that looks pretty good, and it told me it was centered, which is important to me. See, if I bring it all the way centered, it's going to start a new page. I don't want it quite to do that. So I'm carefully going to check at what point. I think I got it to about 9.78 inches, so that's most of it. So we're going to have this as the background. And another thing we can do, if we like, we can add a border to it. So I could hit line, and then it's going to pop up, and it's going to automatically put it in black again. I can change this color, however. If I click on a whiter part, maybe I want a nice gold. Again, that makes me think of a nice, oop, Command Z, accidentally grabbed it there. That makes me think of, you know, a nice classic design, the gold and navy. So I think I'll go with that for this. 5 point should be thick enough. If you want to make this wider, you just increase that, and thinner, you just decrease it. I'll go with 6. I think that looks good. And you can change the effect. I believe this is the one that I've got, this kind of smudged line. You can do, again, this is more classic. We can do almost a chalkboard look, a nice thick line, or a thin one. Go up to 5 point, that should be fine. Some more coffee real quick. And other things you can do include adding a shadow if you want, like a drop shadow. And this shows you the example of what it would look like. You can do a contact shadow, which is just where it kind of touches the bottom here. And we're going to go ahead and stick with no shadow. And then also you can change the opacity of both the border and the actual shape. And you can slide that along and see how it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and again keep it pretty thick at 100%. So now I've got that shape taken care of. And now I want to go ahead and insert yet another shape. Once I click on this and I click on again another square, it's going to again pop up with a black one there. And I'd like it to be white this time, because you don't want to have too much crazy stuff going all over the place, because we want to remember that people might be printing this out and we don't want to waste all their ink. You might get a little bit mad about that. Okay, and if I go like that, you saw the line appeared here, so I know that it is centered on both sides there. So now I'm going to drag this down, and there we've got the line in the middle, so I know that this and this are the same size as well. So already this is looking a lot more sophisticated than it was at the beginning, and I just realized I have not saved this yet, so we're going to go ahead. No, I'll put it in the desktop just to be safe. What was the name of this? It was, I'll just say example cover sheet. Okay, so we got our example cover sheet. So now I've got the border. It's maybe 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch. It's not huge, so it's not going to take up too much ink. But again, you could always just do something at the top if you want to. You don't have to take up too much space is the point. And then I go back down to my logo example stitch designs. I'm going to add that in a text box because I've got this shape here. If I just started typing away, then Pages is going to think that I want some text below this. I want to be able to put the text on top of the shape, so the easier way to do that is to click text. It's going to pop up with a text box. And it seems that today it is behaving nicely and it is automatically popping these up on top. If you have a problem where the text box or any of the other shapes are automatically going below this shape, all you want to do is go to Arrange over here, and you want to make sure that they're either in front, or if you have the text strap, you might need to change that a little bit. Or you can go down to a line and you want to click it on top. Or if you're on the shape, you would want to put that on bottom. And then it will probably be staying where you want it to stay. So example stitch designs, I believe it was. I will go ahead actually and add in the logo. And then I won't keep forgetting. If I had anything in here, I actually don't like to use these preset tools. I find that using the photos or the image gallery is a little bit confusing compared to if I just hit choose. I find it much nicer. I got a new pattern yesterday. So here's the example logo that I created. It says example stitch designs, and again, I want to go for something different than what I've got. So I'm going to do everything nice and centered here. I think that that is going to be different from what I've got. You know, I've got my logo off in the corner because that's who I am. I'm going to go back and zoom in on this and see if I like the color, because now that I'm looking at it, this is a little bit more of a true blue compared to this. So I think I might want to change that. I don't like how it compares to it. Unfortunately, I don't think I can color match outside of the internet. So I'm going to pull this over a bit more. Not quite that purple. I think that looks pretty good. That's matching better. So we'll go ahead and click that's okay. Okay, back to the text box. I'm going to pull this one up to the top. And it's not going to show center yet because I have not centered it. And this font is a little boring compared to the one I have below. Again, I'm trying to go with something a little bit fancier than what I have. But we want to always keep in mind that we want everything to be easy to read for other stitchers. So I try to go with a balance of design and style and legibility or easy to read. So it has me on a Helvetica font at the moment. You can see I've got tons and tons of fonts that I have downloaded. This one looks really nice and classic. This part is a little bit hard to read, but nothing crazy, you know. It is a bit different from this font down here though, and I'd like to match that a bit more. I'm gonna select it. So this one matches this a bit. I probably should have written down the font that I decided to work with. Yeah, I like that too. I think we'll go with this. This is nice. And we can expand this maybe to 38. That looks good. And then if I move it, there we go. It shows that it is nice and centered. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up because I don't want this text box to get too large. And then what else could I do that's a little bit different? I'm going to add another text box. And this one I'm going to do in a more simple font because I only want the logos to be in that fancy cursive. And then I want everything else to be a little bit easier to read. But I can still make it, I don't have to go with Arial or Times New Roman. I can still go with something a little bit on the cursive end or on the fancy end of the fonts, but I want it to be a bit easier to read because sometimes you've got some important information about your charts included in there and you want to make sure that everyone knows what's up with your charts, if they need to be careful of any back stitching or if they're stitching 2/1, things like that. So, you know what, we can go with this chart. It looks nice. It's a little classic, but it's still very clear, very easy to read, even at 11 point. I will bump it up to 12, however. So now, what I want to do is center it. Say a Sarah example stitch production or something fancy like that. And again, I like to shrink it so that I don't have as much problem fitting things in. I got it centered and I have it nice and below. So this is basically like a subheading. So I could put the name of the design there instead or something like that. So far we've got our logo, we've got a title, and we've got a subheading. Why don't we add in the example picture? First, I want to click save because you want to remember to save frequently. Although Pages does save automatically. Again, I like to go to choose. I find it a lot easier. And I want to use my Navi chart. This is a free design I made. You can download it if you like it. It's on my website. It is not in desktop. It's in here. You can see everything I've been working on. I think it's in here. My research, here we go. Hey, listen, centered. I think that's a little big, maybe, but it's actually very easy to fix this. So all we do is go down here and it's going to change into a crosshair. I'm going to stretch it down and it shows me in real life how large this is. I think I have everything set to like American settings, so it's showing me in inches, but you can definitely get it in metric as well. Again, I've got it lined up so it's nice and centered on both sides. It's a little bit large, but again, I think it looks really nice. And if we compare this back to some of the other samplers, like I think it's a little bit fancier perhaps in the Long Dog one. It's different, but you know, it's not dissimilar to some of those other designs. And it's making mine look even messier than before. I think that this looks nicer than the one I'm using right now even. So I'm quite happy with this. And what I would do after I hit save is I would save this and I would probably also, I'm still in the Adobe one, up to Pages, and I would probably also duplicate this. If I click on that, it's going to make another one. And I would save this as the example stitch designs, and then maybe in all caps so it's easy for me to see mock-up. And a mock-up is just another word for saying, you know, a template, basically. And then anytime that I make a new pattern, I would pull this document up, and instead of this picture, what I would do was go over to Image, and I would hit Replace, and let me pull up different, here Jessica, you can come up, click Open, And you'll see it looks a little bit different, right? It did not come up as clear as you would expect. And this happens a lot as well, because what happens is when you replace the image, it's going to assume you want the image to be in the same size as the previous image was in. But I don't want it to be like that. So I'm going to unclick Constrain Proportions under this Arrange, and then I go back to original size. And this one is actually smaller. This is not usually how I do things. I think I would go a bit smaller though. But often you'll have them all over the place. And then I don't have to center it horizontally if I don't want to, but this is just an example to show you how it works when you change the mockup. And then you just resave this into any file name that you want. But we will close this off and we'll work with this one. I've realized that I forgot to show how to add in the copyright information, and I wanted to go over that because it is pretty useful. Although I do think to fit it in, I need to shrink some of this stuff down. So one thing, we're going to get a text box back up again. Move this bad boy down here. And I'm going to scrunch him up again so he doesn't take up too much space. It's really easy to add in the copyright symbol. All we have to do is do parentheses, C, parentheses, hit space, whoop, not V, and it's automatically going to change it into copyright. So let's say I wanted to do copyright Sarah example, because that is my name in this pattern. I'll center it, and again, the font I'm using here, go back over to text, is Charter. So I'll click this, come on. And instead of the Helvetica, I'll go back up. Not every font has the copyright symbol supported, but most of them do. See? And I just wanted to show that because I know that's something a lot of people want to add in. And then maybe, you want to put the year as well. So Sarah example 2021, and then you can move this around if you want to. And I think that looks better. Having the copyright in there, it makes it look nice and official. So this is how I would do it. So after this video, I'm going to post another one showing how we take this cover sheet and put it into MacStitch into our design. But in order to do that, we have to have this available as a PDF file, because right now this is saved as a page document. So what we need to do, last but not least, is go to File, Export to, and we're going to click PDF. And it's going to ask if you want to require a password or anything. No, we don't want to do that. We're just going to click Next. And then it's going to ask us, where do you want to save this and how do you want to save it? I'm fine with example cover sheet.pdf. Make sure it has that .pdf there. And again, just to make it easier to find, I'm going to save it in the desktop. And I'm going to click Export. And now we have that cover sheet saved as a PDF file, and it is saved on the desktop. So this is what we are going to work with in the next video that I make, which is going to be going over how to export your chart into a PDF file since the changes from the 2021 version, because instead of having just one way to export it, there's now like 4 ways. So I've been going over all the differences between those files, and I want to make sure that I had everything down, which is why up here you can see I have like 20 different PDFs, because I was checking how it looks with one key or with the full key and how it is for Pattern Keeper, all that stuff. So we'll go over that in the next video, but this is how I make a cover sheet.